Thank you for joining Bitfinex Securities AMA for ALT2611, a 36-month tokenized bond with a 10% coupon issued on the Liquid network by Alternative, a Luxembourg-based fund managed by Mikro Kapital. My name is Jesse Knutson. I'm head of operations for Bitfinex Securities, and I'm currently on the road in El Salvador. The conversation today is meant to be a general introduction into the business models of both Mikro Kapital and Alternative. For further information, I would recommend visiting the websites of both Mikro Kapital and Bitfinex Securities. The capital raise is set to go live on November the 15th. With that introduction done, let's jump into the AMA for more information on Alternative and Mikro Kapital. Okay, for today's AMA, I've divided the conversation into three main sections. So the first is business introduction, previous issuances, and then some questions on tokenized bonds. So Michele, perhaps to start, maybe a brief introduction to yourself and your role at Mikro Kapital.
Yeah, thank you very much, Jesse. I'm pleased to record this session with you. And I'm Michele Mattioda. I'm in the company since 6 years now. I'm supporting the group from our headquarters, Mikro Kapital Management, which is located in Luxembourg. And I'm taking care of investor relations. I'm a member of the board. I support all the due diligence analysis for our investors, so I know in and out every aspect of our company. I'm happy to give you an overview about it.
That's great. I think that's a great place to start. So let's start with the introduction to Mikro Kapital and an overview of your business.
Mikro Kapital was founded in 2008. We are now diversified across several jurisdictions. We manage a total assets of 1.2 billion euro equivalent, and we are mostly active with microfinance. Microfinance in all its aspects. We provide small loans to entrepreneurs, we provide leasing, we provide sharing economy service for in emerging markets. We operate in Central Asia and East Europe mainly, with all 360 degrees support to small and medium entrepreneurs. So our focus is to provide financial inclusion and instruments for SMEs to operate their business. We do this through securitization vehicles incorporated in Luxembourg, and we fundraise historically with the bond issuance. This is, in a nutshell, our business model.
Very good. And the ticker for this issuance is ALT2611. ALT is a reference to Alternative. Can you maybe explain the relationship between Alternative and Mikro Kapital?
Yes, sure. So Mikro Kapital has invested into alternative creation, and Alternative is a securitization vehicle that invests in the portfolio companies we have across all the jurisdictions where we are present. Credit, leasing, and sharing economies are our target business. We issue bonds from Alternative to finance our activities. So Alternative is our vehicle that support the development of the group through fundraising activities, thanks to our bond issuance.
Understood. And who does Mikro Kapital lend to?
Mikro Kapital lends primarily to small and medium entrepreneurs. We focus on the Silk Road, the Central Asia and East Europe, where we find we can have a similar cultural background, similar framework, and we are active in this region where we find emerging markets, especially outside of the big cities, mostly in rural area. Nearly 40% of our portfolio is in rural area, and we have in total 300,000 end borrowers. It's important and worth to mention that 44% of our portfolio goes to female entrepreneurs. So we provide financing to all small and medium entrepreneurs, regardless of their location, and with a focus to the niche areas of where we can provide an impact.
Very good. And can you talk about the management team behind Mikro Kapital and behind Alternative?
Yes. But if you allow me, just one word more also to
Sure.
about to whom we finance and we support, because I think it's important to mention our sector diversification. Nearly 39% of our loans goes to agricultural sector and agribusiness, so food transformation and food production. 26% are focused into the so-called services, hairdresser, small cleaning companies, and all these daily business for which all of us need. The remaining part is retail, wholesales, and construction. So from the small shops, grocery shop where we go grocery every day, to the service of the plumber, the electrician, and everything related to our house. Just to give you a little bit of taste on what are our effective loans disbursed to. And coming back to your question about the management team behind Mikro Kapital, I think it's important to start with our founder and main shareholder, who's Vincenzo Trani. Vincenzo Trani has a background in banking, but especially he was working for the EBRD, the European Bank for Reconstruction and Development. He founded Mikro Kapital after he has gained a tremendous experience with the EBRD in working in difficult areas to provide financing to small entrepreneurs and to establish a network of microfinance institutions. The other prominent figure within the management board of Mikro Kapital is Johannes Feist. He was at the KfW, the German Development Bank, for 20 years, having supported the German government basically to invest into financial inclusion, small banks, small microfinance companies in, again, East Europe, in the Balkans, and in Africa. I think with their expertise, we can cover largely all the development areas where we would like to bring our impact and our support. But in the management board, we also have other key prominent figure. I'm sitting there as well, but maybe I'm the less important. Our chief legal officer has an experience gained through Germany and Luxembourg, both in the Western Europe regulation, but also coming from an expertise and studies in the Central Asia. Our chief risk manager, Thomas Heining, is also coming from the KfW experience. Our chief financial officer, Nicola Ragusa, has extensive experience in consultancy company, tax advisor, and support of large and small financial institution. So I think we have a diversified and a mixed of experience that allows the management to take Mikro Kapital always to the next step.
Great. Yeah, and if anyone is interested in seeing more on the bios of the management team behind Mikro Kapital and Alternative, they can visit both our website and Mikro Kapital's website. It's published up there as well. Michele, what do you see as Mikro Kapital's competitive edge in the microfinancing space?
Yeah, good question. So what is our added value effectively? I think that being not only a fund structure, which is issuing bonds, so has a huge financial experience in Luxembourg, and according to the Luxembourg regulation, we are also an operative company. It means that we know how to do and how to generate values in the territory. We generate the portfolio, we originate the portfolio of loans and leasing that we disburse. So by saying that, I mean that we control the full value chain. So we have an integrated chain of policy, best practice and regulation across our group that we imposed to our subsidiaries and operative company in the territory in order to control properly the risk of our loan disbursement and leasing disbursement. We have a proprietary network. That means that we have always the majority of the shareholdership of our companies that are originating the portfolio. And throughout this network, we can control the risk of our activities and enhance the return. So a control end-to-end of the full value chain from investor until the disbursement to the end borrowers is our key competitive advantage.
Okay, and I think that ties in with the next question is the historic default ratio. And it sounds like you've kept that low through this vertical integration structure. Is that correct?
It's correct. I like your idea of vertical integration structure, and we have horizontally also the same values shared across several geographies, several territories, and several jurisdictions with all their peculiarity, but the base is the same. And this is why we are able to maintain our NPL historically below 1%. And we want to always refer to our portfolio, not considering the default of our loans, but just the risk metrics which identifies this so-called sufferance of the portfolio. So how many of our end borrowers repay their monthly installments with a delay of more than 30 days. This gives you the sensibility of how accurate is our collection of monthly installments and the loan repayment. And this is a parameter that in microfinance is known as PAR 30, portfolio at risk 30 days. So all the entrepreneurs that are delaying more than 30 days, the repayment of their monthly installments are falling into these statistics, which for Mikro Kapital is at 5.3% currently, compared to an industry average of 12%. And I want to tell you also more about any default that might occur in our portfolio, thanks to our system of having a diversification of loans and diversification of companies that are operational in the territory. Small defaults into a loan repayment would affect only the margin of our company itself. So the investor would not be affected by the default because we have a margin to run our operation, and the very small percentage of default would basically erase our margin, that is there to protect the bondholders. So in substance and other terms, there is an equity investment which we have done and which would be affected in the performance in case of a small defaults. But ultimately, we protect our bondholders who are exposed to the portfolio underlying, which is fully guaranteed and collateralized. Because this is also important, we don't disburse any consumer loan. We only support small and medium entrepreneurs, and therefore we are able to always get a guarantee on the underlying portfolio, meaning that we issue a loan which has to be backed by a tangible goods where the market value, considering also the depreciation at a discount, is at the time of disbursement at least representing 120% of the value of the loan disbursed.
Got it. Understood. Okay, for the next section, I'd like to move into some of your previous issuances, because up until this point, Mikro Kapital has focused on conventional bond issuances. And I think you've established quite a track record issuing these conventional bonds. So maybe the first question is, what is Mikro Kapital's issuance history in terms of conventional bonds, and how many bonds have you issued previously?
Yeah, historically, we are active since 2008. We have issued over 2 billion euro equivalent of bonds all of them fully repaid. Alternative, particularly, has issued 163 bonds in numbers. We have a total portfolio which is now exceeding 300 million of assets, and all of them were always being reimbursed.
That's great. And who is the target audience for alternatives bond issuances? Who are the typical buyers of these bonds?
Well, currently, if we take a picture of our diversification in terms of investor, we would have 40% that are falling into the institutional space and 60% to the so-called wealth management space. So all professional coming from private banks, wealth manager, independent asset manager, and so on. While on the institutional side, we would place pension fund, specialized fund manager, insurance company, and big financial institution or development financial institutions, such as I mentioned before, the EBRD, European Bank for Reconstruction and Development, or FMO, the Development Bank for Netherlands, which are invested also into our activities.
I think we touched on this previously with the business introduction, but maybe we can just highlight this for investors. Where does the cash flow that supports the coupon payments come from?
Yes, our process of disbursing loans is quite efficient. At the time when we issue the bond, we immediately invest into our loans to the subsidiaries. So basically, there is a business plan which is pre-agreed at the fund level, and we follow the business plan. As soon as the bond is subscribed and capital hit our account, then we decide to invest into the loans to the subsidiaries. And the subsidiaries then have themselves a pre-approved list of end borrowers which are financing. Then you have in mind that there is a loan disbursed and then a loan to the end borrowers, and the way back is exactly the same. Our monthly repayment at the level of the end borrowers, it's amortized. So every month they pay a portion of the nominal of the loan they have received plus the interest rate, and they repay to the microfinance institution. Then the microfinance institution repays back to the fund the monthly interest rate without the nominal. The nominal is only reimbursed at the maturity. So you can immediately understand how the interest rate is repaid back to the loan, to the fund, and then it's used to pay out the coupon for investors.
Understood. And what would happen if the end borrowers default on their loans? And then how does the firm offset this sort of risk?
Good question. It's basically back to what we were discussing before about our in the risk metrics. So all our loans are fully collateralized. In the remote case of that, this NPL, so less than 1%, are defaulting. So these small loans are defaulting in the repayment. Then we would have as an extreme ratio to use to enforce the sale of the collateral and to basically try to recover the full amount. Normally, we don't sell the collateral ourselves. We team up with the end borrowers. We ask them to sell the collateral because nobody else better than them, who has used the vehicles eventually, who has used the machinery, is able to place it in the secondary market with a proper value, gaining the proper value out of it, and still having some cash to both repay our loan and reinvest into a new business.
Okay, moving on to the third section, maybe we could talk about some details of this specific issuance and then also tokenized bonds in general. So I think the first question is, why did Mikro Kapital look at doing a tokenized bond? What did you find interesting about that? And why did you choose to work with Bitfinex Securities?
Yeah, well, the concept of blockchain and token, it's very much in line with the values of Mikro Kapital. The aim of blockchain is to have a decentralized space to transfer liquidity, and Mikro Kapital is aiming to have a decentralized role of banking system and direct access for the end entrepreneurs to capital and to financing. So I think the values are in common, and when with Bitfinex we thought about doing together this project. We must think that our idea was to be efficient, reduce costs, and be especially effective for the small and borrowers in order to find the opportunity to receive financement for their project. And Bitfinex was the most reputable and large exchange in the market who can support us with knowledge and expertise that we wouldn't find anywhere else. On top of that, Bitfinex is regulated in Kazakhstan, and we run there one of our company. So there are multiple points where I can say the collaboration with Bitfinex was the right choice.
Yes, certainly. I think after meeting Mr. Trani, I also think that there's a lot of overlap in our values and our goals between the two firms as well. Maybe I think investors who have visited the capital raise page should have a good idea about the details and some of the specific terms of this bond. But maybe for anyone listening who hasn't had a chance to look at the capital raise page yet, can you share some of the details of the bond, the duration, the coupon, the size of the raise we're looking to achieve?
Yes, specifically for this project, we decided to enter into the crypto space. So we said, okay, let's create token digital assets linked to the real economy, but that you can subscribe using your crypto coin or your crypto assets. So it's the issuance is in USDT with a maturity of 36 months and an interest rate of 10%. Once you subscribe, you will receive a quarterly coupon paid out directly on your account at Bitfinex.
Great. And what is the minimum investment size for this issuance?
Yeah, we have to comply with the minimum size for professional investors, and we fixed it at 125,000 USDT. However, the denomination of the token is 100 Tether. So you can subscribe 125,000 and then stepping up with 100 USDT per time.
Great. And qualified investors will also be able to trade in 100 USDT units in the secondary market as well.
Yes, this is one of the ideas. So to give opportunities to create a sort of liquidity and secondary market with small tickets.
Yeah, exactly right. And what's the technology that will be used for tokenization?
The token will be issued using liquid technology. It's a native chain. It's a side chain of Bitcoin, and it has been created to be a chain that supports digital assets and especially tokenized securities. It's quite secure because it uses the principle of the nodes, with a majority of them having to approve the transaction. But as well, it's quite efficient and fast. So we thought that it was the right one to be used.
Yeah, and I think also one of the key features is the whitelisting technology that I think is essential for the regulators and for us to get to meet our KYC, AML, and regulatory obligations. And then also to allow investors to have freedom of use once they're on the whitelist to trade freely between each other. So I think it's a good compromise between meeting our obligations and then once you've signed up, KYC, AML'd, to have that low friction experience that people used to holding Bitcoin are used to.
Yes. If I may add here, I think the regulatory requirement and the whitelisting was one of the very important features as well. And we, as a financial institution, we have to be focused on that.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Without the whitelisting, it wouldn't be approved by the regulator, so that's essential. What type of investors is this tokenized product appropriate for?
Well, I think, again, looking at our current investor, we have a large part of them falling into the space of wealth management and family office. But all of them, including the institutional, have something in common. They want to find a secure way to, with not an excessive long time frame and time horizon, in order to invest their money in something that is tangible. It's because it's linked to the real economy, so it's a real world asset. It's secure because it has over the chain of Mikro Kapital certain security that we have discussed. It's stable because allows you to recover, to receive back at maturity the full amount you have invested. And it's remunerative because it has 10% coupon paid out quarterly, which will generate a sort of cash flow, to positive cash flow to your account that you can then utilize for other investments eventually.
That's great, Michele. I think we've covered all of the topics today. Is there anything you'd like to add before we wrap up the conversation?
Well, you already mentioned that one of the disclaimers is only that we need to onboard professional investors. But I think this is falling in line with the idea of having investors screened by anti-money laundering and QAC at Bitfinex. Any investor will be able ultimately also to self-custody the bond in case that is necessary, but we receive the coupon only being in the environment of Bitfinex. What I want to say is that the diversified portfolio and the various investment sector geography of Mikro Kapital will be also supported by eventually in the future by blockchain technology in order to enhance our exchange within the group. So this token is just the start of a big collaboration where we aim to use blockchain and crypto to facilitate the transaction within our group.
That's great. And if investors have any more questions or they're interested in learning more about these issuances, then I would recommend visiting both the Mikro Kapital website and also the capital raise page, where you can look at the offering documents and some additional information that's posted there. Michele, thanks a lot for your time. I really appreciate it, and look forward to talking to you more in the future.
Thank you, Jesse. It's always a pleasure.